Ah, shoot. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Wednesday, the 7th of May. That makes this the news for Tuesday, May 6th, day 1168 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How's everybody doing today? I'm Peter Alexievich coming to you live at 5 from this major European capital currently under siege. Hey, Bernard. Hey, it's a new dawn. Do you not have a Patreon account? They're free. And I asked that question, hey, PH, because I covered in my morning news section that I publish on the Patreon, the news we are waking up to. Everything about the parade today. Good morning, Annette. Hey, Seawolf. Hey, Dan Ballard. Hey, Eli. Hey, Holly. Hey, Jay. Hey, G2. Hey, Laddie. How's everybody doing tonight? Hello, hello, hello. How you doing, Simon? Hey, Eli. Thanks for your feedback today. Bjorn. How you doing, Bjorn? Sweden's in the house. Do you remember Super Scientifica? Super Scientifica was a Swedish hip-hop group that I was into like in the 90s. Hey, Renee. Plugging along, Bernard. Sorry I'm running a couple minutes late tonight, guys. Do you think if Zelensky has the guts to send drones over Putin and Xi? It's not a question of guts. It's a question of strategy. Right now, so you look at Moscow, right? Hey, Rusty. Hey, Tisno. It's always nice to see Croatia in the house. I keep dreaming of an Adriatic beach. Every time I do. Anyway, hey, Angela. How you doing, love? Hey, Lil Red. Hey, your email was great today, by the way. Hey, Samso. Hey, Richard Prexis. So look, sending drones to Moscow for the Victory Day parade is not a question of does Zelensky have guts? Please, Zelensky has all the guts in the world. If I see him at the front line one more time this month, I mean, the guy takes risks that nobody would take. You want to talk about a guy with guts? This is the guy who said, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. So it's not a question of guts. Does he have the guts to send drones at Moscow to Putin and Xi? They've got all the guts in the world. The question is that the best use? Whoops, sorry. Is that the best use of the net available resources? This country doesn't have the resources. They don't have 30 years of Cold War stockpiles of missiles that they can draw on anytime they want. They don't have long-range weapons. In the crucible of this war, they are evolving them, but they do not have lots of them. And so the question becomes how to best take advantage of this opportunity. And it is an opportunity, make no mistake. The Russians are nervous. Their ceasefire bullshit has been rejected. Now, that's not to say that if the guns don't go silent on the Russian side, that the Ukrainians might not take a break, play a little checkers, maybe some cards, make a few TikToks, whatever. But the ceasefire in its concept, the idea that Ukraine could just be dictated to say that for these 3 days you will not attack us because we're busy having a parade and entertaining guests, when the Russians themselves have bombed the Ukrainian cities where the president, or might have been, no, it was the president of Greece, president of Czechoslovakia, prime minister of Czechoslovakia, representatives of the EU Commission, representatives of the European Parliament, Keir Starmer, Francois Macron. I mean, please, the Russians have not stopped bombing Ukrainian cities when they're entertaining world leaders. Why on earth should the presence of Xi Jinping or To Lam or Lula da Silva stop the Ukrainians from hitting the parade? Now, there's a legitimate reason, right? The Ukrainians are dependent on international opinion of them. And if there's a collateral damage or a world leader is lost, what are going to be the political implications for the Ukrainians, who already have a tough enough time dealing with traitor Trump? There's been a lot of talk lately. So I want to be clear about a couple of things with Trump. There's a lot of talk about how the scales are shifting. Brian, do you mean 420? Is that what that's supposed to mean? All right, anyway. Yeah, thanks, pal. I appreciate it. Anyway. Russia, as it is a pariah state. You look at who's going to this parade. These are not the best and the brightest. Come on. Ukraine is dependent on the world opinion and its reputation to ensure that the flow of weapons and support keeps coming. They fuck it up. They don't do it right. And the world doesn't like it. They could be in for a world of trouble. And that's just the reality of the situation. So, what are some of the things that Ukraine might do? Now, I promise you I'm going to get this wrong. Very little of what I say is going to turn out to be an accurate prediction. Some of the stuff I say might turn out to be something like this, but dig this. Oh, I hadn't heard that, Center Life. Is that true? Pete Hegseth tried to cancel Ukraine contracts without permission. That would not surprise me. And here's the thing. When you say without permission of whom? Because Pete Hegseth only takes his orders from one person. So if Pete Hegseth did try to cancel Ukrainian contracts, he didn't just have permission, he had orders. You can be sure. Yeah, officially. Right, exactly. So, what might Ukraine do on Parade Day? Which, if I'm not mistaken, is Friday, right? That's the 9th? Yeah, we have a show on the 8th. So Friday the 9th. Now, all eyes are on Moscow. Moscow has pulled 280 pieces of air defense equipment and radars, hey Arne, into, Arne is here. He's our sponsor tonight. Everybody say thank you. And they've pulled 280 pieces of air defense equipment and radars into Moscow, which means they took them from someplace else. That could mean that there are lots of juicy targets that are currently undefended. And so that could be the plan here. Clearly, they want the Russians to believe that they are going to hit the parade, or if not believe they're going to hit the parade, that at the very least, they know they can hit the parade. 2 nights in a row. Now, first of all, let's not even go back 2 nights. Let's go back 10 days to when the GRAU Arsenal 51 got hit. Could you imagine an explosion 70 kilometers away, 50 miles away, that you could hear the blasts in Moscow. You could see the smoke cloud on the horizon. Something like that. There's other arsenal. Well, no, there aren't anymore, are there? No, because they hit the other one back a year ago. Okay, forget about that. But could you imagine you're Xi Jinping, you're at the parade, and all of a sudden you start to hear the chain gun fire in the background. You hear the autocannon start up. Maybe you see some anti-aircraft missiles fly off into the horizon. And none of the drones ever even get to you. But just the fact that air defense had to be active during the parade, and maybe your security team decided you needed to get to a bunker, that alone would be a good day. Now, I am not suggesting this. I am only quoting General Ben Hodges when I remind you that he said, in his opinion, the Ukrainians should rain hell down on the parade. A lot of psychological warfare going on this week. And it shows in the responses of the Russians. They're rattling the nuclear saber again. Medvedev said that if Ukraine attacks the parade, Kyiv won't see May 10th. So there's the idea that while everybody's watching Moscow, maybe the Ukrainians will divert to another target. Maybe they'll just send lots of drones to activate air defense without any intention of really getting to a target, but just to have air defense going during the parade. I'm not familiar with that claim. What do you think about China's claim that they invented non-nuclear hydrogen bombs that only weigh 4 pounds? It seems non-nuclear hydrogen bomb. What does that mean? I mean, a hydrogen bomb by definition is a nuclear device. And 4 pounds, there isn't a single unstable element that 4 pounds of it will get you to critical mass that I'm aware of. Right now, it's just a bigger magnesium bomb. So that's not very interesting to me. Burns hydrogen gas. It's a magnesium bomb. Well, fuck, yeah, 4 pounds of magnesium. That'll burn hot and fast. I wouldn't want to be within 200 feet of that. That's for sure. Boy, everybody knows about this but me. Who's this Semper Fidelis guy? I don't know you, Semper Fi. Welcome. I assume you should be thanked for your service with a name like that. Yeah, right. This guy says, right, so this guy claims to be a Russian, claims that his building has been hit by Ukrainian drones because I live on the borders. What do you have to say? I say bullshit. I say if your building's been hit, it's more likely been hit by a Pantsir S-1 fired by the Russians. Far more likely. In the last 3 days, we've seen 4 separate occasions where Pantsir S-1s are sticking out of Russian apartment buildings. So please, give me a fucking break. You know, if you don't like it, maybe you shouldn't have started this war with your neighbors, huh? Maybe you shouldn't have invaded a sovereign nation and supported a megalomaniac, genocidal lunatic. Phew. How about confetti bombs on the parade? No, glitter bombs, Bobby. Send Xi Jinping back to Beijing looking like a disco ball. What do you say? Hey, Bertie. Okay. He wants Finland. He's going to have a hard time taking Finland, I'll tell you that right now. I like yellow and blue smoke. Drop pamphlets demanding surrender. Moscovia will be on fire. All right, so let's see. Back to the news. Last night, there were drone attacks in both directions. The Russians claimed to shoot down 105 Ukrainian drones. 19 of them made it to Moscow. The Russian MOD claims that they shot them all down. In the other direction, the Ukrainians shot down a little over 91% of the drones that came in last night. Really great shooting by the Ukrainians. Now, again, we know Ukrainians attacked Moscow last night. There's been different analysis of the attacks. Some folks are saying, yeehaw. Some folks are saying that these are probing attacks to identify air defense. We know that there's over 100 pieces of air defense around Moscow before the parade. We know that the Russians moved about 280 pieces of autocannons, chain guns, missile defense, short and long range, radars, etc. 280 additional pieces. Moscow is ringed. Additionally, they've upped the amperage on their electronic warfare. And so those drones we saw last night, those Ukrainian drones smash into Russian apartment buildings, were likely set off course by electronic warfare. The big problem with hitting Moscow, as I understand it, is the electronic warfare. They've got all these jammers and spoofers and different things around to fuck up the Ukrainian drones. Now, I did have a kind of fever dream this morning where I imagined a world. Now, look, this is not, what I'm about to say next is not news. It's just a fantasy that I have. A fantasy of two teams of partisans working somewhere in the suburbs around Moscow. One team is the launch team. The other team are the FPV drone pilots. The first team launches a bunch of FPV drones. Thank you, Trav. That's exactly right. This is a fantasy dream of mine. This is not real. I'm just asking you to engage with me in this fantasy. The one team launches the drones at Moscow from the suburbs of Moscow, attached to fiber optic cables, fiber optic drones that can't be jammed. They send a bunch of them up with those new 3D Tech, which is a company here in Ukraine, 30-kilometer spools of fiber optic on them. So they can go 30 kilometers from the launch site into Moscow. Can't be jammed because they're on a wire, right? Just imagine now, the launch team launches the drones and then gets the fuck out of there. The cables come back to wireless transmitters that the FPV drone team, which could be 5-10 miles away, pilots the drones from the launch site on the fiber cables precisely to their targets and causes all kinds of havoc. And then as soon as the drones are done, the FPV drone pilots get the fuck out of where they are. And it's going to take them hours to trace those cables back to the launch site. Now, again, that is pure fantasy on my part. That is not real. But we are living in a world where something like that could happen. And as unbelievable as that is, it's not impossible. And despite all our speculation about what's going to happen on Friday, I think that what really happens will be more interesting and less imaginable to us right now than it will be when it happens. The Ukrainians know what they're doing. I really do trust the general staff to make the most of this. And I think in the end, we're going to see that that's what happened. Okay, now, hey, I got a crab on my head. Huh. Under the sea. Under the sea. Hey, Dark Irish. Darling, it's wetter down where it's better. No, never mind. You know what it is. Now, this is great news. This next thing is great news for the Ukrainians. I didn't say through the internet, Samso. That's not what I said. I said a point-to-point wireless channel. Right? So it's point-to-point, so it's encrypted. Nobody's going to intercept it. Nobody's going to know what you're doing. And you can do it with just a couple transceivers, one on the roof and one at the launch site. There will not be a Russia after this war. It's unless somehow Trump saves them, which he's working on very hard, as far as I can tell. Unless Trump saves them, there will not be a Russia after this war. You can, Joe Dawn. You're not wrong. Evening, Poppy Josh. Ooh, Sidewinders. That's a good point. Real quick, before this story, it was confirmed today that it was Sidewinder missiles launched from Agora V7 drones that took out the two jets, which was nice to see. It's nice to see American weapons helping our allies make history. And so that was great to see. And it explained, too, why those hits were so precise. Now, who said that? Freedom doesn't last. Nostradamus was never right about anything. I don't want to be called him. Now, this is the good news. Now, we don't know if this is temporary just for the parade or if this is permanent. Over the weekend, Ukraine sent drones to Murmansk, to the Olyana Air Base, where the Tu-95 strategic bombers live, right? Well, they live there now. They used to live at Engels, but Engels was too close to Ukrainian drones, so they moved them another 1,000 kilometers away up to Murmansk. And now we have information that they have moved them all from Murmansk out to Balya, something like that, which is 4,000 kilometers. What is that, like 480, or I'm sorry, no, 4,000 kilometers is 2,400 miles. 2,400 miles. It's like New York to LA. They moved them 2,400 miles away. Now, if this is true, and we have good reason to believe it is, if they're going to keep them there because they don't feel they're safe at Murmansk, then a round-trip bombing run, because the Tu-95s are what deliver the cruise missiles to us here in Kyiv with love from Russia. The 2,000-kilometer round-trip flight for those bombing runs just turned into 8,000 kilometers. 4 times the gas, right, the jet fuel, in a country that is short of jet fuel, in a country, despite it being nothing but a gas station with nukes. They're running out of fuel. There's an export ban on. They don't export any aviation fuel anymore. The Ukrainians have destroyed millions of tons of aviation fuel. There's a shortage in Moscow. So they're going to increase the cost of a bombing run by 4 times. The best part of the Tu-95 story is it turns out that back in 1992, the Russians stole all their Tu-95Ms, the new ones, from Kazakhstan. The Kazakhs had the new ones. The Russians had the old ones when the Soviet Union fell. The Russians said to the Kazakhs, hey, send us your Tu-95s, we'll do maintenance on them. They sent them the new ones, 40 of them, and the Russians never gave them back. Which is really funny, considering that we've all been joking that because Russia right now doesn't have any armor, they had to borrow tanks and armored personnel carriers from Kazakhstan for the parade. Who thinks Kazakhstan's getting them back? In light of the fact that they stole 40 strategic bombers from the Kazakhs 30 years ago, they're going to repeat it with these tanks. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Anyway, I just saw Pugga Mahone come in. So Germany's in the house. So let's mention congratulations to Friedrich Merz. With 335 votes in the Bundestag, he became Germany's chancellor today. He lost the first round of voting just barely, but aced it in the second round of voting. So he has cobbled together a coalition government, and a new government and a new chancellor are in charge in Berlin. So congratulations to Mr. Merz. Congratulations to the German people on installing a new government. And also, let's hope that Merz is a man of his word. He has promised Taurus missiles to Ukraine. Let's see how quickly he gets them to Ukraine. The Taurus missiles, they're not going to be here in time to take the bridge out on Friday. That seems unlikely, which is too bad. Whatever you do, don't mention the war? Are you talking to me? That's all I talk about. Now, somebody just said, should Russia be divided? Look, the division of Russia is not up to anybody outside of Russia. When Russia collapses into feuding states, it is the Russian people or the non-Russian people who have been subjugated, some of them for as long as 300 years by the Russian Empire, but who have retained their culture, their language, right? I think about the Tuvans, especially. You know, at the start of this war, there were about 365,000 Tuvans in the Republic of Tuva, which is a far East Siberian enclave of the Russian Federation. 365,000 Tuvans. But if you were a Tuvan, you were 8 times as likely to be drafted into this war as somebody who lived in Moscow, where there's 13 million people. The resentment, the anger, the entrenched centuries of cultural disappropriation. That's when Moscow has no power, when Moscow is as weak as it is, with its army in tatters, its inherited Soviet stockpiles spent. When they have, look, everybody watched as Russia was completely powerless and impotent to stop the Azerbaijanis in Nagorno-Karabakh and support a fellow member of the, their stupid Dollar Tree NATO, whatever they call it, the CSTO. What does it stand for? CSTO, I forget. It stands for, for the love of God. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's their Dollar Tree NATO, right? Couldn't do a thing to help the Armenians, a member of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO. Couldn't do a fucking thing to help them. The world watched. Central Asia paid attention. Moscow is weak. That is the thing. It's not a question of whether or not Ukraine has guts. It's a question of, are they willing to risk the political and collateral damage that could happen to show the world and Russia how weak Putin is. They hit his fucking parade hard. They rain hell down on that parade, as General Ben Hodges suggested they should. What's that going to do to Putin's reputation? He can't protect his own Victory Day parade in the heart of Moscow. So the temptation is to hit the parade boy. That is certainly the temptation. Hey, no. Now, this might sound familiar. You might have a little deja vu when I tell you that the Ukrainian Air Force hit a drone control point and command center in Tetkino in Kursk, where the Ukrainians still are, by the way, right? And eliminated as many as 20 drone operators. Kursk is a hotbed for drone activity. 1/3 of all the attack drones that are fired at this country come from Kursk. Tetkino is a hotbed of Russian reconnaissance drone activity. The eyes in the sky get launched from Tetkino, which is in the far west of Kursk. The Ukrainians are in there. They hold the right bank of the town of Tetkino, and they've got about 13 square kilometers of Russia under their control, and have since August 6th. 9 months as of today. Now, that story might sound familiar to you because a week ago I said almost the same thing. Only then it wasn't a drone control point. It was the drone manufacturing center at the old sugar plant in Tetkino that they took down. Collapsed the whole building, destroyed it. So they've done it again. They're active in Tetkino. They're not only active in Tetkino, the Air Force hitting these kinds of targets, but more importantly, the Ukrainians have begun a new incursion into Kursk, south of Glishkovo. Now, we don't know how big it is. We're just getting word of this from the Russians. We need to wait and see. But it looks like the Ukrainians are going into Kursk again. They're already in Belgorod. And lots of people say, why are they doing this? It's stupid. It's a waste of lives. They should just put those guys on the front line and push into the temporarily occupied territories. That is not the strategy here. It is always easier to defend than it is to go on the offensive. The front line will hold. So the next question becomes, how do you get the front line as long as it can be? How do you stretch the enemy as far as you can to prevent new incursions, new front lines opening up on your territory, creating refugee crisis in your country, destroying another one of your cities? How do you prevent that? You go on the offensive into Russia. And this is exactly what Syrsky said. General Syrsky, the head of the armed forces here in Ukraine, said in an interview to Interfax yesterday or Sunday maybe. In this interview, Syrsky made it clear that the sacrifices that the guys in Belgorod are making right now are preventing a full-scale Russian incursion into Sumy. They are there to keep the 62,000 Russian soldiers in Kursk pinned inside Russia. To keep, right, as long as the Ukrainians are in Kursk, they got to get them out of there before they can do anything else. And so the Ukrainians are pinning the Russians in Kursk. And that's according to General Sersky. Ooh, I'm a dragon. Nice. Who told you? There was a lot of chatter this weekend. So Sunday, Trump gave an interview. I want to say it was on CBS. CBS? I'm pretty sure it was CBS. Does anybody know? Trump gave an interview this weekend. And in it, he said, when asked, what concessions will Russia make in this war? It was CBS. Thank you, Michael. I can't remember the girl's name. She reminds me of Connie Chung, even though she's not Asian. Her style, she's an intelligent woman with a good style, and that's what I remember about Connie Chung. Welker. What's her first name, Lil? It doesn't matter. Sorry. So Welker has this interview on CBS with Trump, and she asks him, Kristen, thank you. She asks him, what concessions are you asking Russia to make? And he says, Russia must give up the whole of Ukraine. Now, that is not what he said, or that is not what he meant. It's what he said, but it's not what he meant. What he meant was Russia's concession is that they're just going to keep the little bit of Ukraine that they have, and they're not going to take the whole of Ukraine because I am so great and they respect me so much that they're going to stop where they are. That's what he meant. 100%. This son of a bitch wants to take credit for the bravery, the commitment, the stalwart resolve of the Ukrainian armed forces that have not only pushed Moscow back, they've lost 54% of the land they took in their initial blitzkrieg. Not only push Moscow back, but hold the line for 3 years. This idiot in the White House wants the world to believe that Putin respects him, which is nonsense, and that he has stopped the war somehow. The only people that have stopped the Russians in their tracks are the Ukrainians, and they have done it with the bodies of their young men and their own bleeding hands. So please. That was the most obscene thing I think I've ever heard Donald Trump say, because it was such an evil twisting of the truth. Because, of course, what should really happen is that Russia should give up all of Ukraine and get the fuck out. But that is definitely not what he meant. I found this interesting. A 43-year-old female TikToker in Kursk was arrested as a traitor for using her TikTok to broadcast Ukrainian troop positions to the Russians. She was in cahoots with the Russians, getting paid by the Russians, is what the charge is, allegedly. But it was just interesting to see. I mean, it's so unbelievable. A 43-year-old TikToker? That's crazy. The Ukrainian army was marching at the Victory for Europe Day parade in London. And by all events, they distinguished themselves well. It was great to see President Zelensky with the Czech leaders. And he stopped to talk to some cleaning ladies, Ukrainian cleaning ladies who work in the parliament in Czechia, and posed for a photo opportunity with them. Now, here are some Ukrainian women who are in exile because of the war. Or, they've left the country because of the war, not in exile. but they've left the country because of the war. They found jobs working in the Czechia Parliament building as cleaning people. Can you imagine if Trump or Putin were visiting Czech Republic and an American cleaning woman came up to Trump or a Russian cleaning woman came up to Putin? Do you think for 1 second they would stop to pose for selfies with them and talk to them like they were people? No world would those two bastards show that kind of respect to those ladies. And it was so nice to see Zelensky with them smiling, laughing, and talking to them like countrymen do. I guess that's about it for me from the top line news items. We can go to questions and answers. Again, I want to thank Arne, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. And if anybody else wants to sponsor live, the PayPal is in the description. What else? Thanks. I'm so sorry. Big thanks to Jay and Travis, the moderators. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, and to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, where all of these lives get posted afterward. So questions, comments, points of observation. What's going on, everybody? Oh, I forgot to mention, the French are upping their production of Hammer missiles for Ukraine to 100 a month. That's a big deal. Woohoo! I feel like I'm at a rave. Are you also only 5'2", Center Life? Do you have that in common? 5'4", sorry. I am not too old to go to a rave. I can go to a rave. I just can't talk to anybody. Is today Opposites Day? Xi is supposed to be in Moscow tomorrow for 3 days, Bobby. So he's supposed to arrive tomorrow. There's supposed to be on Thursday a signing ceremony of some trade agreements, maybe some mutual defense pact kind of stuff. Not clear on that. And then on Friday is the parade, and then he flies out on Saturday. You can go, you just can't stay. Scooby-Doo. You hope he's the next PM of Denmark? Scooby-Doo? Okay. People are free to vote in a democracy how they want. Mike, you have to forgive me. I am not a military person. I don't have any idea what a Doolittle raid is. I don't know what that means. Arne, do they have raids out on the island there? You ever have a raid out your way? Fjords are not conducive to raves. They might be conducive to a little fungi, but I don't know if it'd be conducive to a rave. Canada is not for sale. I saw something briefly today, and I'm not sure, I didn't really look at it too much. I just saw a headline that Trump was giving up on Canada as the 51st state, but he's threatening to invade Greenland? What the fuck? Xi will be counting drones instead of sheep at night. Nice. We stripped bombers and put them on a carrier to attack Japan. Interesting. Is that what the Doolittle raid is? I mean, that wouldn't make any sense in this context because Ukraine doesn't have any bombers. A lot of religious cults in Norway, are there? pardon me. Our kind will not be happy? I don't know what that means. You mean the Welsh? Oh, our king will not be happy. Okay. No, of course not, MJ. Why would you? It's a ridiculous. I mean, really, like, what kind of a person abuses their best friends and allies? We have the longest natural border between two countries that is unarmed, demilitarized completely. Jeez Louise, I used to love being in Buffalo and just crossing the river, to hit the strip across the river in Canada. It was the best. Merz was officially elected Chancellor of Germany today, correct. Brodog has a great question. When Russia sends, I would amend this to win, because we have intelligence that indicates that they're already in the process of transferring North Korean units into the Donbass. So it's happening, Brodog. And Brodog's question is, when Russia sends North Korean troops into Ukrainian territory, what would that mean internationally, if anything? And that is a great question, pal, because what the Russians and the North Koreans are going to say, we know what they're going to say. This territory is part of the Russian Constitution. It's already been annexed. It's Russian. And in the terms of our Mutual Defense Pact, North Korea is obligated to help us defend our borders, internationally recognized or not. So they're in Russia. That's going to be the argument from the Russians. The rest of the world is going to decry that, saying, no, those territories were annexed illegally. You can't send them in there. For me, it's irrelevant. It's just irrelevant. The presence of North Korean troops fighting on behalf of Russia is an established fact of history now. The Ukrainians dealt with them in Kursk. They will deal with them in the Donbass. I doubt very much that the presence of another nuclear-armed nation, Ukraine is now defending itself from two nuclear nations. The presence of those North Korean troops in the temporarily occupied territories will not sway a single nation to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. It might be used to encourage more weapons shipments. But beyond that, I don't think it will be much different. The North Korean troops, as I understand it, are not to be underestimated. They are good shots. They are fanatical warriors. They are suicidal to the point of trying to take you with them if they are cornered. So they present a challenge to the Ukrainians, there's no doubt. But the Ukrainians have demonstrated over and over again that they are more than capable of dealing with these challenges. So I would count on them to deal with them in the Donbass. UK signed a massive trade deal with India today, moving away from the USA. Who can blame anybody right now? Who can blame anybody for moving away from the USA? It's like, you know what it's like? It's like when you're a family and you've lived in a neighborhood for a long time and you're on good terms with everybody. And then something happens and you get a new stepdad. And he is just an asshole. Right? The first thing he does is he says to the neighbor's wife, "Boy, you're one ugly bitch, aren't you?" Like, that's how he introduces himself. Forgive us. Our stepdad is on meth and out of control. And until we can get rid of him, everybody should just stay away. Do not invite us to the barbecue. That's a great point, Bobby. There's no doubt that the North Koreans who have family back in North Korea, the threat of their family being tortured or imprisoned will absolutely affect their behavior. Now, George, you bring up a good point, right? The North Koreans they had no modern battlefield experience. The fighting in Kursk has given it to them. They have learned about drones and modern warfare. And if any of them survive, they will take that learning back to North Korea and train more North Koreans with that new modern understanding, making North Korea more dangerous than they were before their participation in this war. Okay, guys, it's about 3 minutes to the top of the hour. So again, I want to thank Arna, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. He's also sponsoring tomorrow night's live. So there's a couple lives at the end of the week that need sponsors. If anybody wants to sponsor, the PayPal's in the description. Hey, David Keller. Good night, Bobby. Big thanks to Jay and Travis, our moderators. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group, and Lars, who has the Discord server. Van, are you just showing up now? Thanks, Di. Have a great evening, Little Red. We got 2 minutes if anybody has any other questions or comments. 2 minutes, Van. Get your questions in or wait for the recording. Thanks, Bernard. Well, it's already the 7th here. Oh, geez, what did I say that my live is restricted now? What the heck? Anyway, it is the 7th now. It is midnight. Up. Well, it's 1 a.m. And if you hear, the air raid sirens are just sounding. I don't know if you can hear them. But so clearly Putin has not accepted the 30-day ceasefire. If he didn't start it tonight at midnight, today at midnight, then that's it. All bets are off for the parade. I will not try to predict what's going to happen. We ran through the possibilities earlier, and they're probably all going to turn out to be wrong, and the Ukrainians are going to do something much more interesting than what we can think of, with much deeper long-term strategic results. Can you hear it? Thanks, Van. Thanks, Magnus. Adios, bro dog. Night, Scully. You can't find me on TikTok. Well, subscribe to the Patreon or go to the YouTube. I just hit 1,000 followers on YouTube, finally. So jump in there. Thanks, Arn. Good night, Rusty. Hey, Rose. I don't know. It depends. If I'm hungry, I might go to eat. If I'm sleepy, I might go to bed. That's about it for me. All right, kids. Make it a great day. Ooh. I hear air defense now. Air defense is active. If the alarms are just going off and air defense is active simultaneously, it's unlikely that this is a drone strike. It seems much more likely that there's incoming ballistic missiles. I rest my case, huh? Did you hear that? That was close. You hear the car alarms all going off? I don't know that was this neighborhood. These missiles are big. And depending on the missile type, if I had to guess, that's a KN-23 or an Iskander-M. That would be my guess. There's another one. That's distant, but it's another one. All right, kids. I'm going to call it a night. All right, take care, everybody. Maybe nobody wants to sponsor lives now. You're afraid I might not make it until Thursday. I'm going to make it till Thursday. Sponsor a live, please. Help me out while I'm still here. I am as safe as anybody in this country. I am far safer than most. I live less than a mile from the presidential residence and parliament. This is the most defended airspace in Ukraine. Of all the Ukrainian people, we are the best protected. So, and I have a great deal of faith in these folks. Because they prove it every fucking day. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you believe in Ukraine? When you see them on the ground every day doing the impossible with nothing. Knock wood, Bobby. Well, I don't know about that, Titch, but I'm not planning on leaving before the fucking Russians do. I'm having a pig roast on the beach in Crimea when this war is over, and you are all invited. We're going to roast a whole pig, Arn. I'm going to put an apple in its mouth. All right, guys, make it a great day.